What do you think is the relevance of the Arab Spring towards Pakistan? As you know, the divide between what the government knows and what the public knows in Pakistan is also increasing, particularly as it relates to the secret deals Pakistani government has with the United States.
Well, you know, we've had 3 Arab Springs in Pakistan already. Arab Spring is about freedom, democracy, human rights against dictatorships. We have a full-fledged so-called democratic system. The media is free, the judiciary is freer now than ever before. So the demand in Pakistan is not about freedom, nor is it about democracy as such, because, you know, nor is it about elections. So we had an Arab Spring when we got rid of Ayub Khan. We had another Arab Spring when Benazir Bhutto came back. So we've had Arab Spring.
For Pakistan, that was not a huge something new, because in Pakistan there's a history of political movements, democratic movements. So the Pakistanis had their own spring, so to say, in the last 2 years when they stood against Musharraf and in support of Pakistani judiciary. I think the Arab Spring, if it will have any important impact in the immediate future, it is about those religious militant groups or those extremist groups who would always say that the Arab world is either incompetent or under the thumb of the Americans and they are not doing anything constructive. That kind of ideal and that kind of inspiring factor has been taken away. So that in fact can be helpful for the Pakistani government and for all those in Pakistan who want to fight against religious extremism, because the global networks or the global attraction of terrorist groups will diminish.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm not sure this is the spring. I don't know who came up with this word. It's a wrong one, because spring has to come every year. And I think here, quite frankly, the Middle East and the North African countries are achieving what Pakistan has achieved many times before, which is a regime change. 2007 was the best example. So I'm not sure this is the kind of revolution that Pakistan will have, because Pakistan has gone through that, and what it's found is that even at the other side of this revolution, things don't really get better automatically. So my concern is more the Arab world becoming Pakistan in a limbo and not knowing where to go, rather than Pakistan becoming the Arab world. I think that kind of, if you want to call it a revolution, the Musharraf lawyers movement was exactly that.
Pakistan is facing multifarious problems, but how do you think the tussles of the emerging powers and the established powers help understand what's taking place in Pakistan? I'm referring to the BRIC nations and security alliances such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the CSTO on one hand and NATO on the other.
No, I think the internal struggle in Pakistan for political supremacy and functionality has nothing to do with what is happening, broadly speaking, in the region. We have a civil-military problem at home, and we have the problem of the governance or lack of governance that politicians give us. The foreign policy is going to be less able to wag the dog, as it were. The tail is going to be less able to wag the dog in the future. And I think that's one of the good things that has happened now, that until now our foreign policy has been running domestic policy, and now questions are being asked about it, so that domestic policy should run foreign policy, which is why you have this question of the efficacy of US aid and the relationship of parliament, elections, and the civil-military balance, whether civilians should hold the military accountable, the discussions on the defense budget. I think these issues are going to be the make or break issues for Pakistan.
Look, I'll give you the best example. I don't think BRIC is the right example. Look at Turkey. And I think that is the most comparable case here, because the military had a veto in some ways, like the Pakistani military. There was an issue of low development rates, etc. Turkey did 3 things. One, no external conflict. So they mended fences with the people in the region they had a problem with, to a large extent. Second, there was the EU factor, the external impetus. And third, they decided to put their own house in order. And they pulled away from aid rather than went further to aid. So India, SAARC, and more self-reliance. Self-reliance not in the sense of isolation, but certainly in putting your own house in order, in tax reforms, etc. That to me is the way forward for Pakistan.
There is a flux in the international relations and in flux in terms of these power politics, whether it is geopolitical or at an international level. But I think it's the geopolitics in the local context which is or regional context which is becoming much more relevant. Yes, US has huge interest in South Asia, just to give one example, but it seems to me that it will be Pakistan, India, Afghanistan and Iran which will play they are the stakeholders of course as well, but they will play the most significant role in deciding the fate of Afghanistan, let's say.
Do you think the Islamic world in general is moving away from United States? We have seen the tensions increase in the relations between Saudi Arabia and US. Iran has traditionally had bad relations because of its nuclear ambitions, and lately the tensions between US-Pakistan relations. Does it mean that US and the Islamic world are drifting apart?
No, I don't think so. On the contrary, I think one of the reasons why President Obama has unfurled his new approach to Israel and to the 1974 or 67 boundaries and so on, I think this is a great initiative. It follows strictly out of what is happening in the Arab Spring that you're talking about. I think the American president wants to cash in on the goodwill that there is right now in the Arab world, amongst the people at least, for the United States after a long time. And so this is a good initiative, and I think it will be supported by Saudi Arabia, by everyone will support this. It's the Israelis who will have problems with this, but then that is Obama's problem.
I think since the coming of President Obama and the White House, things have changed. Not that before him President Bush was at war with Islam. I don't think so. But they were not sensitive to some of the discourse and narrative taking place in the Muslim world. Since President Obama came in office, he has been very categorical in saying US is not at war with Islam. I think this is having an impact. This message is now reverberating, or this message is being listened in various parts of the Muslim world, that they cannot continue to look at different countries and different regions as different blocks.
Well, it depends. It depends on policies. I don't think the Islamic world as a whole is, but certain countries certainly are. But there are a number of divisions within the Islamic world, which I don't see, going away just because of any one major event or not. So I think it depends on how US policy goes forward. But this current US administration has tried to reach out after the damage the Iraq war did in terms of the opinion in the Muslim world, and hopefully that will continue.
The question everybody is asking, what the implications of OBL. Do you think his death would make the reconciliation with different factions of Afghan Taliban easier? I'm referring to the Haqqanis, the Mullah Umars, the Quetta-Shuras. Now that the head figure is gone, do you think it will speed up the process?
Yeah, no, the thing is that this is a myth. The Taliban were never terribly fond of Al-Qaeda, but Mullah Umar had a personal relationship with bin Laden. And now we are beginning to find out that the Taliban were not enamored of Al-Qaeda. They wanted Al-Qaeda to go away and not create problems for them. I don't think Al-Qaeda and the Taliban link is going to be a problem. As long as the Taliban find a role to a table or a chair at the round table of the future dispensation of Afghanistan, they will say bye-bye to Al-Qaeda. I don't see that as an obstacle to the end game.
I think Osama bin Laden's death was very important in this sense that he had a symbolic stature. But in many ways the damage was done. I very much doubt that his policies or his organization was so strong that they were defining the various relationships. I think there's a new dynamic. There's a second-tier leadership of Taliban which is in action. There's failure of the nation-building project. We should have no reluctance in accepting that. The Pakistan-India confrontation continues. It is those factors which will define the future of Afghanistan.
Too early to tell because we don't know what Osama bin Laden's relationship with these groups was personally. I think if anything it will make it easier because the kingpin, the symbolism of Osama bin Laden was important. But just how it will happen, whether Pakistan will deliver, whether the sanctuaries will be attacked, I think it's too early to tell. I've seen some optimism and euphoria. I'm not sure that's warranted at this point in time.